the African nation of Matobo groans under a brutal dictatorship. 3 men discuss the atrocities of dictator Zwane, who has wiped out half a city. They drive to an abandoned stadium where boys are playing, and the kids ask if they want to see the dead. The photographer stays in the car, while the other 2 step into a storeroom. An awful stench hangs there, and the floor is carpeted with bodies. When the men come back out, a teenage boy guns them down, saying the teacher sends his regards. The photographer hides and snaps photos of the arriving car, from which a suited man emerges with armed guards. The story shifts to New York, USA, where an interpreter named Sylvia is working a UN Security Council session. At the entrance, the metal detectors fail, and an evacuation is announced. The interpreter leaves a box with her things, so she doesn't carry it around, hoping she'll be let back in soon. But security combs the building for hours, and Sylvia returns to her booth only in the evening. She puts on her headset for simultaneous translation and suddenly hears 2 unknown men speaking. The lights snap on, she fears she's been spotted, and she bolts in a panic. At home, she texts someone. She heard something, she's worried, please call. In the morning on her way to work, Sylvia notices she's being tailed. She's scared, but she starts her duties anyway. The UN debates Matobo. Opposition figure Kazola is in hiding. Another, Kuman Kuman, is in exile. And President Zwane has begun ethnic cleansing under the pretext of fighting terrorists. So he should be referred to the International Criminal Court in The Hague on that basis. Sylvia is urgently called to talks with the Matobo ambassador, who is given an ultimatum. Zwane must step down to avoid trial. The ambassador replies they can tell the president themselves, because on Friday he will address the UN General Assembly. Sylvia heads to UN security and reports what she accidentally overheard the night before. Supposedly, the teacher will not leave the hall alive. Only today, after meeting the ambassador, did she realize they meant Zwane. Security confirms that if the translator's booth light is on, you can see who's inside. The UN calls in US Secret Service agents Tobin and Dot, who protect foreign delegations, and tasks them with guarding Zwane. The agents ask about the interpreter and learn Sylvia lived in Europe and Africa, studied linguistics and music. Her mother is English and her father a white African, and 5 years ago she moved to the States. Sylvia then tells Tobin she may not recognize the voice because they were whispering. The agent notes the curious coincidence that at the very moment she returned, someone discussed a killing in a language only a dozen people in the US know, in a hall full of microphones. The interpreter bristles. Why would she make this up? Tobin suggests she knows Zwane. Sylvia denies it and stresses she doesn't wish the dictator dead because she believes in UN ideals. In the end, they leave her without protection, and Tobin writes her off as a liar. Leadership assigns FBI agents to help Tobin and Dot, and the team studies the president's background. He was a folk hero at the start of his rule. Now he goes everywhere armed and knows he won't be walking through metal detectors in the UN building. The agents wonder why anyone would kill Zwane so blatantly, in front of the entire world, and whether they're wasting time because of the interpreter. Tobin requests the CIA file and learns Sylvia was born in Matobo and holds dual citizenship. After that, they put her under surveillance. Sylvia tries to reach a certain Felipe, but he's unreachable. At home, Tobin listens to a message from his wife, who wants to come back. He chokes back tears and goes to sleep at the office. In the morning, Sylvia is put through a polygraph, but it only shows extreme stress. Zwane's security chief, Niels, tells Tobin that Sylvia's family died in Mabodo, blown up on a road that was mined on the president's orders. The agent decides the smaller mistake would be believing the interpreter, and he chooses to hide that she can't identify the voice while also using her as undercover bait. Then, Niels sends him a photo from a rally of extremists in which Sylvia is in the crowd. When Tobin asks, she answers it was a peace rally. And as for her family, she says that under Mabodo beliefs, grief can be healed by saving a life. The killer is thrown into the water bound, and only the victim's family decides whether to help him. Meanwhile, the agents sweep the UN building and assess the odds of an assassination. Back home, Sylvia notices her African mask is missing. And suddenly, a stranger appears in the window wearing that mask. She screams, and a neighbor calls the cops, who inspect everything, and find no signs of forced entry, no evidence, and only a hair on the mask. Tobin chews out the surveillance agent who missed it all and learns Sylvia left a bag with her keys in a locker at work. He invites her for a drink, and in a relaxed setting, Sylvia says the mask was a gift from her brother Simon, whom she hasn't seen in a long time, though they remain close. Once she loved to read, and he loved to record. In another apartment, a thug strangles the man who broke into Sylvia's place for leaving evidence. Tobin takes Sylvia to spend the night at his place, and suddenly he reveals his wife died 2 weeks ago. She had left him recently, not for the first time, and wanted to return, but she crashed while riding in her lover's car. Tobin admits he would definitely have let that scumbag drown if he lived in Matobo. In the morning, no prints are found on Sylvia's locker. It's been wiped. The janitor is a suspect, but it turns out he was being replaced by a certain Jamal. A newspaper publishes the bus route used by Kuman, who lives in exile in Brooklyn. Philippe, the same photographer from Africa who survived the prologue, shows up to see Sylvia. He says people claiming to be from Kuman's circle contacted him and set up a meeting with Kazola. He drove the opposition figure to the spot, and a teenager gunned him down. Sylvia asks about someone named Simon, but Felipe knows nothing about him. Tobin believes Felipe will be the one to kill Zuani. That night, she suddenly calls Tobin, who is watching her from across the way. The woman says Philippe told her that a friend, and a man she once loved, has been killed. Gained knowledge the agent is close by, Sylvia finally sleeps peacefully. In the morning, she walks up to the surveillance car and asks for a ride to Brooklyn, where she gets on a bus with Kuman and speaks his language. The man asks if she knows who he is, and Sylvia replies that he killed Xola and asks where her brother is. Kuman is sure someone is framing him, because he never wanted Xola dead. On the contrary, he hoped to unite with him to topple the dictatorship. Agents discover the fake janitor was a man named Gamba, and in his apartment they find a bomb and a body stuffed in a closet. The man himself boards the bus, carrying Sylvia and Kuman. The agents think the faux janitor has a bomb in his bag, but don't know how to get close. Meanwhile, Kuman promises Sylvia he'll make inquiries about her brother. The interpreter, the villain, and 2 surveillance agents step out onto the street. Tobin orders an immediate evacuation, but the bus explodes. The African politician and one of the agents are killed. Afterward, Tobin grills Sylvia about what she was doing on that bus and shows a photo of her holding an assault rifle. The woman says she joined the resistance after her family was killed. Her brother called her a coward and cut her off. Yes, she lied about her past because she'd never have been allowed anywhere near such a sensitive job. She admits she once loved the late Kazola, but their different skin color was an obstacle, and she left Africa without her family or the man she loved. Then Sylvia falls asleep with her head in Tobin's lap. Agents find Philippe dead and a letter for Sylvia stating that Simon, her brother, was killed alongside Kazola. Now she is utterly alone in the world, and Tobin, who has also lost someone close, feels for her. In Philippe's things, Sylvia finds the notebooks she gave her brother, and inside are records of Zuani's victims. Sylvia adds Simon's name to the list, and then her own. At home, she goes to the bathroom and packs a bag. The book about Zuani's heroic past and her UN badge go in. At that very moment, Gamba creeps through her apartment. Tobin spots him, sprints over from the building opposite, and kills the intruder in a shootout. But Sylvia is nowhere to be found because she escaped down the fire escape. Later, she texts Tobin that diplomacy is too slow and she's going home. In the morning, Zuani's plane touches down and the agents lock everything down. He's met at the stairs and escorted to the UN. Tobin dispatches a team to a possible accomplice of Gamba's, and he's told Sylvia bought a ticket and is about to reach the airport. The agent asks them to find her and put him through. Zuani waxes nostalgic, recalling how the last time he came to New York, he was greeted with flowers and a parade. This time, the same spot hosts a protest against him. Tobin is given a photo of Gamba's accomplice, a member of Matobo's delegation. It turns out he's already inside the building, and he retrieves rifle parts hidden in a restroom, assembles the gun in the sound booth, and cuts a hole in the glass. Neil steps in and says the man's family will receive a check on Friday. Tobin notices the hole and orders the dictator rushed off the podium, but the man resists because he hasn't finished his speech. The killer fires, but Neil shoots him first. When Tobin arrives, he sees the president has miraculously dodged death. The agent remembers Kuman's interview about how a leader who survives an assassination attempt always becomes a hero, and he checks the rifle, only to find it wasn't loaded. Niels is arrested, and Sylvia approaches Zuani, who has been led to a bunker, and says she remembers his first UN speech, because to them, he was like the Beatles then. She takes his pistol and tells him he murdered her entire family. Tobin guesses where Sylvia is, contacts her through a security camera, and steps into the bunker. He explains the staged attack and says Zuani will die in prison, but the woman refuses to lower the gun, so Tobin suddenly confesses he won't be able to go on without her if something happens to her. Sylvia shames the president for what he's done to their country and hands the pistol to Tobin. After this, Zuani is sent to The Hague, and Sylvia is deported to her homeland of Matobo. In parting, the two admit they regret all they didn't get to do. As she says goodbye, Sylvia says she loves Africa, even though she has no one and nothing there anymore, and she asks Tobin not to disappear. He holds her gaze for a long moment and answers, "Count on it." This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.